Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 427, May the 11th, 2018, Friday. Fun Friday. Oh, we're going to have some fun today. There's nothing that's more fun than watching the deep state unravel, watching the momentum shift, and humorously enjoying watching Mueller getting kicked into stones. So before I get into the main topics of today's video, let me hit on the most recent breaking news from today. Of course, we had the meeting where Nunes and Gowdy went over to the Justice Department to have a meeting. And that meeting I thought was supposed to be with Sessions, but no, it turns out no Sessions. It was Rodenstein. That's right, it was Rodenstein. And of course, the discussion that they're having is that Gowdy and Nunes and other members of the committee want to get their hands on a couple of things or get information about a couple of things. Primarily, they want to know if Judge Contreras was one of the FISA court judges. They want to know who this super secret intelligence source is who's been giving information to the FBI and to Mueller. And they would like to, of course, still try to get those 1.2 million pages of emails that are being withheld from them. They've only received about 4,000 pages. There's 1.2 million. So I imagine he's wanting to turn up the heat on that. It doesn't appear they're being pretty quiet about what happened in that meeting. The only thing they're saying is that they had a productive discussion. Now they also want to get that scope document, which is the exact same document that the judge told Mueller that he wanted unredacted. So I expect they will get the scope document. I don't know that we'll get to see the scope document or that we'll get to see it unredacted. We definitely won't get to see it unredacted. We might get a redacted version of it. That's probably about as good as we'll get. Hang on. Cheese or steak, one of the two. Let's see. Yeah, so not getting much information about what came out of the meeting other than they had a productive discussion. But something tells me that, of course, they're trying to buy time and run the clock out, but I don't think that Gowdy and Nunes will let them get away with it for long. They might be able to have another discussion next week, but I would think that by next week, if they don't get what they want, they'll probably go ahead and tell Rodenstein that they're going to go ahead and move to have a vote for contempt of Congress. That's my guess. They're going to keep leaning on him. Very funny, though, thing I noticed that Nunes was there today. Because if you remember, the last two times that they went over to have a discussion or to look at some document in a skiff, it was Gowdy, and Nunes didn't go himself. He sent one of the investigators on his team from the House Intelligence Committee. Kind of interesting that Nunes went in person today instead of sending one of the people on his team. So I don't know if that tells us anything, but maybe it tells us that he's not 100% trusting in Gowdy. Yeah, I'm sure he trusts him to some extent, but probably thought, you know what, I better go just to make sure that Gowdy gives me the straight dope on what is going on and that he's not actually playing both sides against the middle. So I think that Nunes, from this point forward, I think you will see him go into these meetings himself instead of sending other people and trusting Gowdy. So we'll follow that as it continues to develop. Next up, we have Tom Fitton talking about the new emails today, which show, now these were emails he requested almost a year ago. He finally got them. I guess it would be yesterday, got them. And it shows clearly that the FBI officials advised Comey to talk to Mueller to consult with him prior to testifying to Congress. And why did they want to do that? Why did Comey and the FBI want to get together and discuss things before and even have Mueller, I guess, involved in that as well? Why did they want Comey talking to the FBI and Mueller and getting all kinds of documents before he testified to the Senate? I believe it was the Judiciary Committee he testified in front of. Well, it's very simple. Like I said, I mean, he wanted to make sure he got his story straight and that he didn't say anything that could be contradicted with a document or a previous statement. but this just shows that the collaboration was going on. Obviously, Comey in very close contact. This is after he was fired. He's not the FBI director anymore. He's the fired FBI director, but he still has close communications, close contact with Mr. Rybicki and other people there in the FBI, and they're advising him on, hey, you better come in and get these documents. You better take a look at this stuff before you talk to the, before you answer any questions to the Senate hearing, and you might want to have a talk with Uncle Bob and make sure that everybody's on the same sheet of music so nobody says anything that contradicts anybody. That's what happened. And we'll be learning more about that in the future. Tom Fitton has also placed a FOIA request recently to get all the conversations between Comey and Mueller. And he should have included Rodenstein in that as well. And we're still waiting for hard confirmation on whether or not Comey called Mueller right after he was fired. We have the Gateway Pundit and the American Thinker both reporting on that. Two separate sources. But no one else picked it up. So, still waiting on that. Because if we find that there were conversations in that week right after Comey was fired, and between the week that he was fired and Mueller was appointed, and that Comey had conversations with Mueller or Rodenstein or anyone who may have been middlemen in that conversation, that could certainly raise a lot of questions. And something tells me that that is the case. Emails, of course, show that the chief of staff at the FBI, Rybicki, McCabe, Assistant Director Greg Bauer, Comey, and others were discussing Comey's upcoming testimony in front of the Senate. Comey wanted from Rybicki any documents authorized by him or documents where he was mentioned or copied before he testified to the Senate. So there you go. Collusion. Mark Meadows will ask the Government Accounting Office to audit Mueller's investigation. Yeah, I can understand that. He spent somewhere between $8 and $10 million so far. We don't know how much, but a lot of money has been spent on this ridiculous cover-up operation disguised as a Russia investigation. And so, yeah, it's just another way to apply the pressure and apply some more offense. Well done, Mark Meadows. But there's much more that could be done. And finally, we have Mr. Magoo coming out and saying he is against Trump's pick for the CIA, Gina Haspel. Senator Magoo is against Gina Haspel. I wonder why. Probably because it's a Trump appointment. He's opposed to anything that Trump is for because he's Senator Magoo. I wish he would die already. If he's not going to tell us his role in the deep state coup, then what good is he? He says that he's opposed to Gina Haspel because she supported the torture. Well, Senator Magoo, you're a big fan and a good friend and a close ally of Mr. Potato Head, John Brennan, the former CIA director. In case you didn't know, Senator Magoo, Brennan supported the torture as well, and in fact testified in Congress explaining why he supported the torture, and he said because it worked. And do we have any proof that torture works? Let's see. I remember a particular, now he's a senator named Magoo, but then he was a Navy pilot named Pilot Magoo. And Pilot Magoo was shot down in Vietnam because he was a bad pilot, probably after dropping napalm on some civilians. Then he was captured, and in the process of being captured, he claims to have been tortured, at which point he sang like a bird and got the nickname, one of many nicknames he has. One of his nicknames is McNasty. That was a nickname given to him when he was in school, learning to be a pilot. But once he was captured in Vietnam and started singing, as a result of torture, he got the nickname Songbird McCain. So, Senator Magoo, if, according to you, torture does not work, then why did you do those propaganda videos for the Viet Cong? after they tortured you? Why did you sing like a bird, Senator Magoo, after they started torturing you? If it wasn't the torture that made you sing, Senator Magoo, then what was it? Because you like the old Beach Boys tune, Bomb, 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 Iran? What a disgusting, despicable sicko Senator Magoo is, contradicting his own self. Now, my thoughts, I've never talked, I ain't going to spend a lot of time on this. My thoughts on the torture. I'm opposed to torture, generally speaking. Is waterboarding torture? Yes, waterboarding is torture. Absolutely. Waterboarding is torture, and I'm opposed to torture. However, I'm opposed to torture as a general rule. I don't want the cops using waterboarding, okay? I don't want the FBI or anyone else using waterboarding, a form of torture. But there are circumstances, there are certain situations where you have to do what you have to do. Now, this particular animal that we're talking about, Sheikh Khalid Muhammad, is the guy who had his people capture a journalist, and they beheaded him on video. He is a terrorist. Now, I know a lot of you, I agree, 9/11 was some sort of a deep state job. But that does not discount the fact that there are terrorists and terrorism exists in the world. And yes, I know we've been apart behind, I know all about that. But that doesn't discount Mr. Mohammed and the things that he was doing. And he did have information. So I don't support torture as a general rule. And I don't like it. In other words, I don't support it. We don't torture, like, we don't want cops torturing people. We don't want the army in general torturing people. If you capture a soldier from the other side on the battlefield, I don't want the opposing soldier tortured. But Mr. Mohammed was not a soldier on the battlefield. He's a terrorist. And he did have information. He was the number 2 man or something like that, top man. He knew about operations going on that likely would have caused more deaths of Americans. Maybe even another operation here on American soil that wasn't a government job. Or that was a government job and he was working with them. Who knows? We don't know. My problem is the way they did it. My problem is the way they did it. They tried to play this game. Oh, waterboarding is not torture. Yes, it is. Don't tell me it's not torture, a-holes. We all know it's torture. Have somebody waterboard you, and then you tell me if you think it's torture or not. Waterboard W and Cheney, and then let them tell us it's not torture. I think that you'll get a different response once they're finished being waterboarded 184 times. My issue wasn't the fact that they tortured Muhammad or the fact that we do torture or anything like that. I'm opposed to it in general. But there are very, very specific cases. Very, very, very specific. Very rarely should it ever be done. But in that case, I supported it. My problem is the way they did it. They should have came right out to the American people and said, look, in the Geneva Convention we are signed on to, we do not do torture. It's illegal. We aren't going to take the soldiers from the from our enemy and torture them. We're not going to do that, and we don't want them to do that to our guys. We don't have cops torture people. Torture is not something we do. But we have a very, very unique situation. We've got a terrorist, a really bad dude, who has information that he's not coming off of. And we want to get it out of him. So while we don't generally use torture to get information, in this particular case, we think it's warranted, and we think you, the American people, need to know that we're going to torture this dude. We're going to torture him. We're going to waterboard him. We're going to do all sorts of things to him. We're going to get the information out of him. But we just wanted to level with you, America, and let you know what we're doing and why we're doing it. As a general practice, we don't want to do this. But there are situations. What if it was your daughter? What if it was your child and a kidnapper had taken your child and you had someone in custody who knew the whereabouts of your kidnapped child and he wouldn't come off the information? What would you be willing to do to get the information to rescue your child? Case closed. Let's move forward. Oh, bumped the knee with my table again. Sorry, Dennis. Trying not to do that. Okay. Saggy Daniels. Saggy Daniels' lawyer has accused the wrong Michael Cohen of accepting money from a Russian-American oligarch. Saggy's lawyer, Michael Avenatti, passed along stolen Treasury Department records to his allies in the media. Let me say that again. Avenatti passed along stolen Treasury Department records to his allies in the media. The documents are transaction reports and suspicious activity reports. These documents were for a Michael Cohen. Now, the sketchy porn lawyer Avenatti and his media allies claimed it was Trump's lawyer, Michael Cohen. Now, there are a couple of those transactions that are dealing with Michael Cohen, Trump's lawyer. But the majority of them, and the really bad ones, were not Trump's lawyer, Michael Cohen. They were a Michael Cohen from Canada and another Michael Cohen from Israel. So, that's who the other two Michael Cohens are. Now, previously, it was Confusion GPS that got the wrong Michael Cohen when they said that he was in Prague, and it turns out he wasn't. That was another Michael Cohen. So, you think that they would learn from their mistake, but guess not. But I guess not. Michael Cohen is a very popular name. Probably thousands of Michael Cohens. So now, we see that the swamp doesn't just include the FBI, the DOJ, the CIA, the State Department, IRS, and military-industrial complex. It now has consumed the Treasury Department too. And we know who's under the Treasury Department, do we not? The Secret Service is under the Department of the Treasury. Worries me knowing that the Treasury Department is now part of the swamp as well, and that the Secret Service is under the Treasury Department. Now, I've seen this video clip before, and I know most of you have, so I won't go any farther on that point, but I think you know what I'm getting at. So, some swine at the Treasury Department searched the database of Michael Cohen and gave the raw data to Saggy's sketchy lawyer, Avenatti, leaking and stealing government records with intent or malice. As a result, the IG of the Treasury Department has now opened an investigation to find out who leaked the documents. Hopefully, they will have no more luck. Hopefully, they will have more luck than the DOJ and FBI and Uncle Bob have had finding out who in signal intelligence leaked the Michael Flynn call with the Russian ambassador Kislyak. Now, as I said, most of these turned out to be other Michael Cohens. But there was a couple of these that were the Michael Cohen, Trump's lawyer. One of them shows a possible pay-for-play arrangement that Cohen may have had going on. He's close to the president. He's got access to the president. And when you're someone who's close to the president or has access to a president, lots of people are going to throw money at you for you to put in a word for them. This is fairly standard. Now, will the Democrats and Uncle Bob and the FBI and the DOJ, will they try to clamp down and go after Michael Cohen for this one particular transaction, which could show a pay-for-play? Well, you know what? I don't want them to, but if they do, let's see how that works out. First of all, do you even want to say the words pay for play? Because if you're going to make a big deal over pay for play, when people hear the phrase pay for play, the first thought that pops into their mind are the Clintons or the Clinton Foundation. Now, let's just say that they decide to prosecute Michael Cohen or go into an investigation and go after him for this incident of possible pay for play. Well, if they do and they charge him and convict him, they will essentially have set a precedent for pay for play. What establishes the precedent for pay for play? Now, once they establish that precedent, just with what we see with Michael Cohen in this situation, they would then have to apply that to anyone else in future cases, because the attorneys would refer to this case as the precedent-setting case. So if you went after Michael Cohen for this, what seems to be minor infraction of possible pay for play, which is done all the time in Washington, if you just focus on Cohen just to target him, then you're opening up the door for the Right Reverend Clinton and the Clinton Foundation to be thoroughly gone over, because the type of pay-for-play they were involved in was real pay-for-play. So something tells me they're not going to want to go down the pay-to-play route with Michael Cohen. Just my thoughts. But Saggy's sketchy lawyer, Avenatti, has another problem. Avenatti, this past week, circulated a dossier on Twitter that purports to show that Cohen was hired last year by Viktor Vekselberg, a Russian business magnate who attended Trump's inauguration and made a donation to the inauguration. The payment in question was made by the U.S.-based affiliate of Vekselberg's Russia-based company. The U.S.-based company, Columbus Nova, confirmed the payment but denied any involvement by Vekselberg. Now, not only did Avenatti just put Saggy's case in jeopardy, he just maybe investigated himself and prosecuted for passing stolen government documents, and it may lead to a larger conspiracy, depending on the circumstances of how and why it was leaked. But Avenatti did something even worse. He exposed the Rotten Reverend Clinton and her crooked pecker-accused rapist husband, Slick Willie, of further scrutiny. You see, Mr. Vekselberg has a lot of Clinton connections. Let's review the connections of Mr. Vekselberg and the Clintons, shall we? After all, it is Fun Friday. What's more fun than tightening the screws on the Rotten Reverend? So you want to try to attach Vekselberg for a donation he made to the inauguration, to try to use that against Trump? You want to use Mr. Vekselberg against Trump? Let's have a look at the past history of the Clintons and Mr. Vekselberg. Emails that show, this is from the Washington Examiner. Emails show that the Clinton Foundation staff pushed the Rotten Reverend Clinton's disciples in the State Department to approve a meeting between Bill Clinton and Viktor Vekselberg. Vekselberg's Renova Group has donated between $50,000 and $100,000 to the Clinton Foundation. Another Vekselberg company, Olarcon, donated $25,000 to the Clinton Foundation. Peter Schweitzer points out in his book that the long relationship with the Clintons and Vekselberg, that it goes back a very long way. Vekselberg was involved in the Rotten Reverend Clinton's Russian reset when he was invited to be a partner of the technology sharing between Russian businesses and the U.S. Silicon Valley tech community. Vekselberg set up a company called Skolkovo, which used technology sharing with Silicon Valley tech firms. The Rotten Reverend's State Department labored to drum up interest in this company. Vekselberg was named as the guy to head up Skolkovo 4 days after the Rotten Reverend met with Medvedev. Medvedev announced Vekselberg would be the top man to head up Skolkovo just 4 days after that meeting. Cisco and Boeing, major Clinton Foundation donors, paid Slick Willie $256,000 for a speech in 2010. 3 months after Vekselberg's announcement that Cisco would invest $1 billion in Skolkovo. There are 28 companies in the partnership with Skolkovo. 17 of those 28 are Clinton Foundation donors. And there's much more in Peter Schweitzer's book about the Clintons and Mr. Vekselberg. I think you get the idea. I could go on for another 20 minutes, but I just don't have time. Let's keep in mind the FBI in Little Rock and New York are currently investigating the Clinton Foundation. And now, since they brought up Vekselberg's name, I'm sure they're going to be taking a second look at him. So, the Clintons are probably not very happy with Saggy's sketchy lawyer, Avenatti, who has damaged his client's case, damaged his own reputation and credibility. He's opened himself up to a criminal investigation. He has exposed a criminal rat in the Treasury Department, and he has likely renewed the interest in Vekselberg and his dealings with the Clintons and the Clinton Foundation. And I'll tell you what, Cohen possibly has a defamation suit against him. I warned Saggy. Those of you who watch my videos know I warned Saggy Daniels not more than 2 weeks ago that this lawyer was bad news and that she was going to come out of this thing much worse than when she went into it. And that the only guy that may actually get something out of this is Saggy's sketchy lawyer, assuming he hasn't just screwed up by being involved in the theft of government documents and spreading them to the media. A crime. Could be the Trump curse. Well, Uncle Bob, the executioner's publicity stunt to charge 13 Russian trolls and 3 Russian companies has backfired big time. Uncle Bob thought that the accused would never stand for trial, and he knew he couldn't force them. But one Russian company has hired 2 top lawyers, and they have appeared in court to answer the charges. On Wednesday, the most recent hearing, at the arraignment, lawyers for the defendant pled not guilty and asked the judge for a speedy trial. They also presented the notice to the court to invoke discovery privileges to obtain U.S. intelligence about what they knew of Russian activities. The Russian firm's lawyer, Eric Dublier, said that they were going to exercise their client's rights under discovery to examine all of Mueller's evidence of the conspiracy. They also told the judge that something he might want to be aware of is that they know that Mueller has access and has in his possession private company records, and he would like to know where Mueller got the authority to get them. Not good for Uncle Bob. These lawyers look pretty aggressive, and they want a speedy trial. You see, my friends, when the government charges you with a crime, you have the right to see the evidence against you. It has to be turned over to your attorney so that he can prepare your defense. Mueller knows this, but he didn't expect the trolls to get a lawyer and show up. They certainly didn't expect him to go to one of the best law firms in New York and hire 2 of the best, who now look like they're going for Mueller's throat. Very well done, Russian trolls. Thank you so very much. Clearly, the Mueller team has not prepared a case because they never thought there would be a case. The judge refused Mueller's request for a delay. On top of that, it is 10 days and counting before Mueller must give Judge Ellis in Virginia the scope document unredacted in the Manafort case. And in the Flynn case, the judge has received Mueller's exculpatory evidence and is reviewing it now. Mueller has also requested a delay in sentencing in that case. So it's not looking good for Uncle Bob and the Hillary Clinton posse. Oh, hang on. This just in. Michael Cohen's attorney is now asking the court to have Avenatti explain how he came to possess and release Cohen's bank records. It may be the first time in history that a lawyer for the plaintiff pleads the fifth in a court hearing. Yeah, we know what happened. It's very simple. They raided Cohen's office, they got the documents, and they leaked them. Who in the FBI? I mean, there can't be that many people. Maybe they'll get to the bottom of that. Maybe. Or maybe not. So, we're going to continue to watch these things play out, and we should all be very happy today. It's a good reason to have a fun Friday. Because if you go back 6 months, where we were 6 months ago, man, it was dark. There was no hope in sight. No light at the end of the tunnel. It was all Mueller all day. Trump Russia all day. There was hardly anybody coming out to defend Trump other than a few people in the Freedom Caucus and all of us. But as far as judges and people on Capitol Hill that have some real clout, things like that, there was no investigations hardly going on. It just seemed like it was all a one-sided deal back about 6 months ago, and the momentum was totally with the anti-Trump crowd. The momentum was with Mueller at the time and all these other things. But if you look where we are here in just the past few weeks, the momentum has totally shifted, and particularly in the last couple of weeks with these two judges ruling against Mueller, and with people losing their patience with Mueller, the SWAT raids kicking doors in, these fact that these cases that he's bringing are now being challenged. And I think it was Yachtmaster that asked about whether or not Mueller could be sued, or someone saying he had immunity from being sued. Well, he does have prosecutors in general, not just Mueller, prosecutors in general do enjoy some form of immunity, but it's not total immunity. And in fact, Mueller obviously doesn't have total immunity because Manafort filed a lawsuit against him. That's what that case was last week. That was not from the original case that Mueller, the criminal case that he was involved in with Mueller. That was from the civil case that Manafort filed against Mueller. That was the second hearing. So, yeah, you can file a suit against someone like that. There are parameters and things like that. You have to have cause and things like that. They won't allow frivolous lawsuits, which is what that's designed to do. And they do give certain protections to prosecutors. Mueller obviously has some immunities, as well as his team have some immunities, but they don't have complete immunity. I mean, if Mueller's out breaking the law, he's out committing crimes, which he is. He's running a massive cover-up operation. Mueller, right now, is guilty as hell of covering up a major crime. Why do we know that? We know that because, well, we know for a lot of reasons, but one specific reason we know is that because we learned yesterday that Mueller interviewed Mike Rogers back in July of 2017, at which point Rogers, I'm sure, told Mueller about the illegal FISA searches, the illegal FISA 702 searches that were going on. Highly illegal, unconstitutional searches going on by the very team that Mueller inherited when he became special counsel. So Mueller knows all about the illegal FISA FISA searches. He knows all about that. He knows everything about it. That's a big fat crime, and Mueller knows about it, and he is covering it up. Has anyone seen Mueller investigate that? No, nor will you. When you know a crime has been committed and you cover it up, you are guilty of a crime. Mueller is not just an average citizen who knows about a crime that occurred. He's the damn prosecutor that's supposed to be prosecuting the crimes he discovers. But Mueller is only prosecuting, he's not prosecuting the crimes that he has discovered in his investigation. He's prosecuting a witch hunt against Trump while covering up the crimes that occurred by the small group that he now heads, that he took over for Comey, who are committing big fat crimes, lots of big fat crimes, including a coup, which Mueller is a part of. You see. So, I do have one question that we answered the one question that's been on my mind for a while that actually Patty prompted me to dig into it. It's been on my mind, but when Patty asked her question a few days ago, I said, okay, well, I've not really been able to have the time to dig into this, but I want to find out, why did Rodenstein fire or recommend that Trump fire Comey? I mean, they are best buddies. They are working on the scheme team together. So why did he? And of course, now we know. It's because what Rodenstein told the Senate committee hearing is that he knew before he wrote the memo that Trump wanted Comey fired. So they knew that Comey was going to be fired. So that answered that question. But I still have another question now that I'm interested in trying to get the answer to, and that question is this. John Huber was brought in to be the prosecutor so that he could prosecute, because we were told the IG cannot prosecute. He's not a prosecutor. He can investigate crime and wrongdoing inside the DOJ and FBI, but he can't prosecute it. So Sessions said that's why he brought in Huber, to have a prosecutor. So here's my question. Once Horowitz discovered that McCabe lied 4 times, including 2 times to the IG, that's a crime. Making false statements to the FBI is a crime. And Horowitz has admitted that McCabe made false statements to the FBI, a crime. Why didn't he just turn around and refer that to Mr. Huber, who's got prosecutorial power, instead of referring it to the DOJ? I mean, who's the DOJ going to prosecute in the DOJ or FBI? You're asking the DOJ, you're asking Rodenstein to prosecute? You're asking Rodenstein to prosecute McCabe, knowing what McCabe knows about Rodenstein?